My colleague across the aisle, Mr. Allen, just acknowledged that this Congress doesn't seem to have gotten anything accomplished. I just want to note for the record, this is a GOP-controlled majority Congress, and I would agree with him, unfortunately. But, Mr. Mix, I have some questions for you, and this is my preface is for all of you. I represent Pennsylvania 7. It is a community with one of the richest legacies of organized labor anywhere in the country. It's home of Mack Trucks and Bethlehem Steel. And in Pennsylvania 7, we know that strong unions are the key to a strong economy where people can work hard and get ahead and can support their families. Mr. Mix, you testified in favor of H.R. 1200, a law that, if implemented, would force every state in the nation to adopt so-called right-to-work laws. And in your testimony, you claimed that union-negotiated contracts often work against the interests of the employees. So my question to you, and I've spent a lot of time with unionized employees in my district, is it against the interests of workers to have wages that are on average 11.2% higher than their non-union counterparts, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics?
No.
And is it against the interests of workers to have better access to paid leave and pensions, two more benefits that, again, my unionized workplaces are much more likely to offer?
Yeah, I would say no. I mean, the idea of those benefits being available, why wouldn't you rely on voluntarism? Why do you need compulsion? Why do union officials need compulsion in law to force workers to associate with them and pay dues as fees? If they're doing this great work that you've all talked about, then people would join them voluntarily.
Well, we'll have to invite you when we have a hearing on what management tactics take place to discourage people from joining unions, but I reclaim my time. And we know that a 2021 report on the construction industry, one of the most dangerous industries in the United States, found that nationally unionized work sites are 19% less likely to have a safety and health violation than their non-union counterparts. And I'm sure we can agree that that is in the interest of all workers, correct? To have a safe, healthier workplace?
Yeah, well, if you're doing that great things, why wouldn't people want to join voluntarily? Why do you need compulsion?
Thank you. And I'm going to move on to Mr. Jody Calamine. And let me just say that based on data that I reviewed from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average median union worker is paid approximately 20% more than the median non-union worker. In the private sector, union workers are 26% more likely to be offered health insurance through work, 12% more likely to have access to paid sick leave, and 53% more likely to have defined benefit pension plans than their non-union counterparts. And I could go on, but I don't ever have enough time for that. But the data is crystal clear, in my view. Workers are better off when they have the right to organize. I'm going to ask you, sir, based on your experience, can you expand on how union contracts provide more freedom to workers? And if you could incorporate, into your answer, is it fair to say that right to work is a misleading term and these laws actually take away rights from workers to freely join a union? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. With respect to the first question, when you have a union contract and you have union representation and you're living your life, a union contract sets up a kind of rule of law of the shop. And if the contract says you're entitled to a week's vacation and you need to use that vacation to go see your sick mother in another state, you can be ensured that you will have time, you'll have that time and you won't be retaliated against or lose some sort of a benefit because you decided to partake in that benefit. So it's all about having that support as you exercise, your engage in, receiving benefits and so forth at work. You are protected with your union contract. That provides for a lot more freedom in a person's life. They can go about their life with a lot more confidence on how things will turn out more predictably. You're not operating at the whim of a boss who can engage in arbitrary actions. With respect to right to work itself, I lay out in my testimony, the time's running out, but I lay out in my testimony all the ways in which it is not about worker liberty at all. It's more about giving the employer the ability to control the workplace.
Listen, right to work laws are so plainly, simply, and obviously a giant scam to defund unions. I mean, anybody with a brain can clearly see this.
Listen, I've been working in the union since '88, okay? And when Trump came in, that's when you saw the transition from 2015, by the end of his term in 2020, that's when you saw, I would say there was about 80% of the guys all Trump. And now, I swear to God, over 95%.
And so union guys support Donald Trump because what does Donald Trump do for unions?
He brings jobs to America. That's what he does.
So it matters more the job creation than whether he actually supports unions himself.
Pro-American policies. What comes around goes around, right?
And I've been talking about Michigan for a long time. We can't let them take your car industry out or your industry out of your state any longer. Not going to happen.
And so now Trump wants to run that play again. He wants to show the union workers that he is their man. Except President Trump spent 4 years in office distinguishing himself as the most anti-union president of the last 3 decades. He appointed Eugene Scalia, one of the nation's top anti-union lawyers, to be his Secretary of Labor. Under Trump's administration, the National Labor Relations Board implemented sweeping new rules that made it harder for workers to form unions, rules, by the way, that Joe Biden reversed when he took office. Trump packed the courts with anti-labor judges, people like Thomas Farr, who spent his career bringing cases before the courts to weaken unions. President Trump made it harder for workers to earn overtime, and he gutted the federal agency in charge of workplace safety.
You know, one of the reasons that corporate America and the managerial class doesn't like unions is because they want to be able to fire people in droves whenever it's time to boost corporate stocks and stuff like that, or just save a couple of bucks for the executives. Which leads me to my next point of why it's absolutely hilarious that Donald Trump is supposed to be a pro-union guy when, like, his entire brand is, "You're fired." Like, I mean, it's a total oxymoron. And then, two, the whole stance against, paying your monthly dues is so childish. You know, it's the same reason why we got to pay taxes, so that we can have a society around us, so that things can function. You pay your union dues so that you can have a higher salary, so that you can have better benefits, and so that you can be taken care of. It's really quite simple. I mean, think about pretty much anybody that you know who's in a union. Man, those people make good money. Those people be making $50, $60, $70, $80, $100 an hour to do things like welding or to do steel work or whatever else it may be, man. People who are in unions are hooked up. Nobody who's in a union is going to be against paying their dues if they understand how it works. But ever since union membership has been cratering over the last several decades, look what's happened to the middle class. People don't have as much money in the bank. People don't have savings. Household debt continues to skyrocket. Student loan debt continues to skyrocket. Credit card debt continues to skyrocket. It don't matter what it is because unions work. Organized labor works. And that's why so much money is invested to defunding and destabilizing unions in the United States.